It's been a little over a month since Halloween was released in theaters, and since we already know the release date for the Blu-ray is January 15th, everyone's kind of wondering when Blumhouse and Universal are going to get together and announce a sequel. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie, but there's no way anyone in their right mind would believe Michael just keeled over and died in that fire. I refuse to believe he'd go out that easily. And of course, since the movie pulled in around $250 million, and it's Blumhouse we're talking about producing it, there's no way we're not getting a sequel within the next 2 years. Knowing that sequel is happening, I hope I'm not alone here when I say that it really shouldn't be made without David Gordon Green, Danny McBride, Jamie Lee Curtis, and John Carpenter. Jamie Lee Curtis has said she'd come back if David Gordon Green directed. Both David Gordon Green and Danny McBride have said that they'd like to come back and that they've been kicking around ideas for a sequel. And I know there's that whole report from Bloody Disgusting that says they've already started moving forward without those people, but I'm taking that with a grain of salt, because why would that happen? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. When you tally up all the people who said they would come back, you have David Gordon Green to direct, you have Danny McBride to write, and you have Jamie Lee Curtis coming back to play Laurie Strode once again. But the one person who's missing there sorely is John Carpenter. He's the father of the series, and he needs to come back as well. Thankfully, when Consequence of Sound sat down with John Carpenter earlier this week to talk about stuff he was doing in the future musically, they straight up asked him whether or not he'd come back for a sequel, and all he had to say was, "We'll be ready, we've talked about it, we'll be ready." That's a reassuring answer, and it's exactly what I wanted to hear. So thanks a lot, Consequence of Sound. I know this won't surprise you guys at all, but I'm really excited that John Carpenter is willing to come back and do a score for a sequel. I've said this multiple times, but even though Halloween 2018 is a great movie in its own right, the glue that really holds it all together is John Carpenter's score. There's really no denying it either. And on top of that, he's a great composer on his own, but when he comes together with his son and Daniel Davies, the stuff they create is incredible. And finally, we've had two movies in the current timeline, Halloween and this Halloween that came out this year. They were both scored by John Carpenter, so not having him for a third movie in this new timeline wouldn't really make sense. And when you look at the Halloween franchise as a whole, as I've done over the past year, it's really easy to notice that one of the biggest problems it has is that big creators come on and work on one movie and then they bounce right off. That's one of the biggest reasons I think Halloween 4, 5, and 6, even though they're considered a trilogy, all feel like standalone movies that don't really fit together. If Blumhouse and Universal can manage to keep this creative team together, it'll be the first time, Rob Zombie's movies excluded, that this series has had the benefit of that happening. And I really want to see that happen. And say what you will about Blumhouse. They've been around for a little while now, and they tend to milk franchises as much as they can until they can't make any more money out of them, and I don't necessarily agree with that practice, but you can't deny that year over year they continue to get better, they continue to learn, and it seems like to me that the people over there are first and foremost genre fans. I mean, they have Ryan Turek as one of their lead producers. He's the VP of development over there. That guy is pretty high up in the company, and he was the executive on set for Halloween. He made sure that that movie didn't fall apart, and he was there to make sure that they didn't make decisions that would diminish this movie for fans. So it's hard to believe that he wouldn't want to bring back the same creative team for a sequel, in my mind at least. And look, I'm not saying this year's Halloween was perfect, but I do genuinely believe it's the second best movie in the franchise, and I'd like to see that story continued. It seems like it's all a little too good to be true right now, but it looks like all the pieces are actually falling into place for a sequel to have the same creative team come back, and I just really hope it happens. I think that once the Blu-ray is out, that means the marketing run will be over for this year's Halloween, and that's when they'll announce a sequel and let us know who's working on it, hopefully. I do think that the movie will be out in the next 2 years, so they kind of got to get ahead on announcing it, right? Like, we got to know pretty soon. But that's all the Halloween news I have for you today. If you're not already, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed, and I'll be making Halloween videos as long as I can. So anyways, guys, my name is Jimmy Champane, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.